Well, it is 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock your time, so let's start, and we'll start by saying hello everyone. Welcome to the Fiction Hub. Welcome to Life of Fiction, Coffee with Jamie, and I'm here with my good friend Deleyna Marr, and also known as Lisa. And we wanted to talk about one of our favorite subjects because I'm just going to call her Lisa. Lisa and I are really good friends, and we really like world building. Am I correct in speaking for you? We really like
Oh
world
yeah.
building. So we're gonna spend the next hour plus and we're gonna discuss this. And you'll notice if you come in here, well, that there's books here all over. These happen to be the advanced world building guides that I've been doing for years. And it's one of the things that I think both of us are known for. I know I'm known for. But
We'll see.
we'll see. They still sell well. But I have my coffee. You do have your coffee? Oh, I wish you get. Yeah, I want to see that close in the mug. So that's the mug that I designed. Oh, there you go. That's better. Oh, I actually did the speed drawing for that. Oh, that was fun drawing that. Everyone was like, "What?" I said, "That's actually a cartoon picture of me, how I function when I do events over on World Anvil."
This
Yeah,
was you and I both that particular event. We were both just like fingers on the keyboard, flashing as fast as possible.
I know. What did we come in? We came in with like, wasn't there like 4 days left or 6 days left? I can't remember. We were like right
You
at
were
the end.
ahead of me. I was right. I think I was, well, I think I finished a little bit ahead, but not much. You were ahead of me.
No, but I mean, because we were both busy at work, we both had
Oh, when we
projects when
started.
we
Yeah, we
started. Because the contest is all month long, and didn't we come in like
a
I thought
week
it was
before.
I thought it was like
It
6 or 4 days before. Yeah, and I was like the last stretch. I think I stayed up 48 hours straight. We were both talking while we're both on the computer. I'm like, "What are you doing up?" It's like, "I'm gonna finish this."
it's world building. They challenged us to do world building. So of course, what are we going to do? We're going to do it, even if we only get like a week to do a month-long challenge, right?
Yeah, except for we both got the diamond, correct? You got diamond?
Oh yeah, we both got diamonds.
I know I got
Neither
diamond.
of us was going to stop without diamond.
And that was how many articles? That was
It
that
wasn't by articles. I think it was word count. Was it?
no, no, it was articles because word count
Oh,
is
that's right.
world
Diamond is
ember.
articles.
Yep.
Yeah,
This was
diamond is
summer camp.
articles.
Yeah. It wasn't like
I
40
think so.
something?
Yeah,
41,
I think
42.
40 articles.
Uh, does it say
Oh,
on does
you
it
know
say
what?
on
It
your
was
mug?
42 because that was the one that he added the two at the last minute.
Yeah.
And both of us were like, oh, we're doing those two. We're
Cuz
doing
that was
42.
like what, 12 to 24 hours. He's like, "Do two more." Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But what the viewers won't be able to see on that mug close enough. I don't know if you can get it close enough to the camera, but it's the point where it's blurry. I need to find the picture. I gotta find the picture. That would be hilarious. Let's see if I can find it. Uh, no, I'm not gonna bother doing it right now. I have to go through
It's
a
the
lot of stuff.
coffee cups attached to the hat on your head. That's hilarious with the IV drip of
Really,
coffee.
I was gonna say I like the big hot coffee IVs going into my arm while I'm just tapping away and the blur of the fingers. So, so I have the first question for you, Lisa,
Uh-oh.
because we started to talk about it last night before we closed down for the night. But how did you first fall in love with world building? I want you to tell.
You want to hear this
I
story?
do.
Okay.
I want to hear the story. I want to know how you, because I know I had to think about it. I couldn't remember. And then I got two things that I think it was a combination of both, but I was like, I went to bed curious. Wait, you said it was quite the story. I want to hear.
I don't know quite the story, but just growing up, my family definitely did not want me to be a writer. That's for sure. But it was not always a pleasant situation to be in growing up. And I didn't have, as a child, you don't have the ability to escape or get away or anything, you
Right.
know. And there was a lot of external, it looked really nice on the external, right? And so it was all about appearances. Okay.
Okay.
But for me to stay sane, I was able to create worlds in my head. And I created the world I wished I could be in. And that was just it. I started it then. There's a joke that my first novel was written on gum wrappers, but that's actually true
For real?
because
Do you still have
they
them?
would. No, I don't. No,
Oh.
I don't. No. I was a little kid, but they were trying very hard not to give me paper, so I wouldn't be a writer.
Wait, 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 wait,
Um,
wait, 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 wait. Your parents tried to stop giving you paper because they didn't want you to be a writer?
because every time they gave me paper, I wrote stories on it.
Well, do I dare ask, what did they want you to be?
A computer science engineer, although at that time they didn't call it computer science. It was an engineer. I was supposed to be an engineer.
Huh. Well, you are
Yeah.
one of the smartest women I know, so.
Well, thank you. But yes, I had a lot of fun with that, and so yeah, I grew up with a very avid escape room in my head. So, and then once they gave me my very first computer, they were like, "Here, you can learn to program, and it'll be wonderful." They did not realize that you could write novels on that.
You
And so
just,
I had to have a lot of those, those floppy disks, right? That were the five, and they were
yeah,
the bigger ones,
yeah, yep.
Uh, you could barely get a novel on one of those. You really couldn't. But, I had a stack of those and they just thought I was programming.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, they didn't know they just gave you an entire forest of paper. Yeah. When did they find out? Did they find? Oh, of course they found out, but
They continued to fight. And I, right down to, I wanted to go to a liberal arts college, and they said, no, absolutely not. And so I was sent to a local college, and I was very close to getting my engineering degree, but then I hit physics and the advanced math, and there was just something about my brain at that point in my life that couldn't handle it. And so my teacher took me aside. He goes, I got to ask. He said, is there anything that you are good at?
oh, ow, ow.
And I said, writing, because, they'd had these, you have to take electives, right?
Yeah.
My mom would get so mad because every time they gave me an elective, I would take something that was writing. And my teachers had said, I had one teacher who was like, hey, we got this little unknown program that's for creative writing, that it's one-on-one with a professor, you get to write a book. I'm like, I'm there. They're like, it's not in the syllabus, but we can get you into it. We'll call it an elective. Sure. So they're doing all this for me at the college, and my mom's just looking at my engineering degree, right? And
so,
yeah, I,
so
I
it's
was
not showing at all.
no, no, it's not showing at all.
I love it.
I was still living at home when I called her and told her that I had been required to change my degree and that I was now a creative writing.
You were required. How did you pull that one off? How did you
Well,
justify
because
it?
no, I literally was required. I was going to lose my scholarship because I couldn't get the physics.
Oh,
Physics.
oh.
And so I have a electronic engineer EECS, electronic engineering computer science minor.
Uh huh.
I have an anthropology minor, but I have a degree in writing, creative writing.
Wow.
Yeah. I had to move out after that, but it was worth it.
Wasn't it? Wait, wasn't it you, Lisa, that told me that there was actually a PhD in creative writing? You were the one that told me that,
Oh, yeah.
right?
I don't have it. Yeah, there's there's
I,
there's also a master's. There's a master's in creative writing too.
so
MFA, Master of Fiction,
which is higher, master's or PhD?
PhD.
Okay. I gotta remember which one the gnomes are gonna give me.
Because the gnomes are going to give you one from
Yep.
Clockworks University.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I have
They're the best ones to judge, aren't they? I mean, they know how good you are at fiction. So,
they they are. So now I've just got to plan the certificate. I need to get some examples and put it there, and then I'll buy a big beautiful frame and we'll put it all in and put it on my wall and And if anyone questions, you don't have a PhD. Yes, I do. It's right there. Well, that's fiction. Hello, life of fiction is what I do for a living. It's just okay. Oh, I like that story. I like that. So, are your parents still alive?
No, they're not.
Oh, did they ever get to a point where they were like, we're pleased with you. We're proud of you.
No, I was never forgiven for that. No.
For real?
My
Oh,
my
gosh.
father actually went on to become a creative writer. He actually started writing, and
For real?
it turned out, and I did not know this growing up, turned out that it actually ran in my family on my father's side. And he
This
gave
is
me a
your
book to edit.
fault. No.
I know, right? Oh, they got a divorce by that point, but yeah.
Oh.
Uh, he gave me a book to edit, which I did, and then he barely spoke to me after that because he said, "You don't know what you're talking about." And so
Oh,
he had his
goodness
wife,
sakes.
who was an English as a second language individual. He had her edit it. So yeah,
This world is a
yeah,
very crazy place.
it was an interesting childhood. So, how did you get into world building?
I You know what? I got it down to two things. The first time that I experienced, I had um, a really neat neighbor kid. His name, and it's funny, I can't remember most people when I was younger. Hey, Joe. Um, and yet I always remember this kid. He had such a dramatic impact on me. His name was Brian Hoops. He was our next door neighbor. And the neat thing about Brian Hoops, none of the other kids associated with Brian or his family, I never did understand that. He was the older kid in the neighborhood. I think I was 8 at the time. He was 10, I think. Anyway, always kind, always respectful. My parents adored him, adored his family. Always respectful, polite, helpful, but just so very creative. And he didn't want to go do the sports and everything else. His parents were very well to do. We lived in a wealthy neighborhood. His father did import exports, and that you got to remember this is back in the early '70s. And so uh, the neat thing about him, his mom, she was such a sweet lady, but I'm not sure that she was all there. And I mean that in a very, very kind way. She often seemed lost. But anytime people came over to the house, she was like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you." Just so generous. They had a beautiful home, but they had the most extraordinary things in their house because his dad traveled all around the world and would bring things home. So they had a huge fish pond in the house, in their gigantic house, where she had. That's the first time I ever saw goldfish that were like, as big as my arm. And she'd say, "Well, would you feed the fish today?" We'd go in there, and they'd suck on your fingers. You're a little kid going, "This is so neat." But I remember one time, his dad came home from a trip overseas and brought Brian home a monkey, an actual live monkey. And the authorities found out. One of the other neighbors, a lot like Mrs. Kravitz, um, and tattled on them, and the authorities came over, and they were very kind. Mr. Hoops had everyone's respect. He was one of those pillars of society, very generous and all this. Anyway, they said you have to give it to the zoo. But the cool thing is he had a special. I can't remember what kind of monkey it was. It wasn't a finger monkey. It was tiny, really, really tiny, like the size of your hand. And Brian had permission to go to the zoo and actually go with the people back to feed his monkey and things from time to time. But the thing with Brian was he had such an imagination, and he played this game called Dungeons and Dragons, which I was like, this is so weird. He goes, but it's kind of fun. This is the Gary Gygax, age, the development of the game. And he taught me and my little brother how to play. And that's when I started role playing, was at 8 years old. So I kind of think of, if you play a tabletop role playing game, there's everything's world building, right? But at the same time, I don't know how many times my both my parents were avid Tolkien fans, and my father, from a business trip when I was a little kid, he brought home this limited edition uh, version of The Hobbit, and they had triple fold out pages with paintings of the scenes on them. And it's funny because something happened to the one, that very book that my mom read to us every year. She read the whole book to us every year as kids. So I don't know how many times I've heard The Hobbit, but that one particular book. And my mom died in 2004, and somewhere along the way, growing up in California and then moving to Utah, that book got lost. And for my 51st birthday, I think, I got a package in the mail from my baby sister Eden, who lives in Missouri, and she had found and bid and won the bid on one of those rare books, and she gave me the book. It's on my shelf
Oh,
now. So now I read that to my children. But my mom would do the voices. My mom would, my parents were the kind of, books were everywhere. We were always encouraged to read. We were always encouraged to be creative. I didn't know this until I was like 12, somewhere between 12 and 15. My dad was a cartoonist. Before I was born, I'm like, Dad, why don't you draw? He goes, I didn't really have a talent. My mom would be like, your father's brilliant. And once in a while, when on the rare occasion that Dad would babysit, he would tell stories, but he always told stories while he was drawing the cartoons or the scenes. I haven't seen him do that in like 40 years, but I just remember that it stuck, and my mom was a painter. But they had like 7 copies of every book that they could find from Tolkien. They know everything about the history of everything. You don't need what is it, a bestiary or a bestiary. They just knew. And yeah, so Joe's asking Jamie, did your friend Brian and his family influence your writing? Yeah, because the neat thing is that they were one of the only friends, the only families other than my own, that they encouraged creativity. Brian drew and he painted and he created, things in clay. And so sometimes we'd do Dungeons and Dragons, but he'd make some of the figures of the monsters and he'd prep it, before. And then they had a huge house. So they'd put out, this, I'd never seen that octagon type paper before. And he'd have these rolls. His dad would just buy him all this stuff just to be creative. And I just realized I love being in this environment, kind of like, when you're saying you've got that, in your mind. And I just started writing stories, and it was always comic books. So that's how I got into that. I mean, yeah, I just loved that. I think what cemented it, though, was reading my first Dragonlance book. Me and my kids laugh and say, that's like the entry level. That's the conversion tool that we give people. We say, you don't like fantasy, you don't know about fantasy, read this book, yeah, read Dragonlance. You might like it. I remember giving it to my wife about a year after we were married. She had not read fantasy, and I gave it to her, and we'd come home, we'd take turns with chores. I worked graveyard, she worked swing. So there was like 1.5 days a week we actually saw each other. First couple of years we were married, and, and I'd come home and the dishes aren't done and the house is just the way that it was left. And because I would do it on my days and on hers, she wouldn't. She'd be sitting on the couch reading those books. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I can't stop. I need to know what happens. And then I was like,
that's
you know that
awesome.
there's 3 more books. What? What are they? Not telling you. We're taking a break. Help me with the dishes and then we clean up stuff. Because you got the Time of the Twins and the War of the Twins, and yeah. Now there's, what is it? There's like 147 books. It's somewhere around there. We'll have to look it up. I own them all. I bought them all. I have them all. I gave them all to
Yeah.
my kids. I was like, which is kind of silly because some of them, I don't mean to be cruel, but they're not all Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Some of them suck, but but the world is awesome. I still like, I still like Kender's. Tasselhoff Burrfoot is, yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite characters.
So other people were playing in their world.
Yeah, well, Paladine is who inspired my first thought of making Chuck. So, and his relationship with the Kender, how he adored Tasselhoff. That's kind of the feeling I wanted to have between Chuck and Wendell. So that's where I got into that. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
It's a balance between D&D and mom reading. So yeah. So you've worked with a lot of authors.
Yes.
Tell everyone here what you do for a living.
Okay.
What
Which
why
part?
you work with?
So
I know you have many parts. However, I would like you to tell everybody that you are it starts with a P.
yes, I run a small indie publishing company, and I fund my publishing habit by building author websites, coaching authors, and now we're running the No Stress Writing Academy.
Yeah. And
So see,
you,
there we go. Everything I do is with writers. And actually, if you look back at my degree, I actually am one of those few people who actually uses their entire degree.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I
Thank you, Joe. Joe let
aw.
me play on his website. He let me do animation on his website.
Oh, that sounds
Now you
awesome.
know who Joe is. Now you know
Yes,
which
now I
website.
do. Hello, Joe. Good morning. We've only talked through emails. So yes, and so everyone knows I do not use the word trust lightly, hardly ever. But Lisa and I have enough history and enough. We've had enough experiences together in the working environment that I have absolute confidence, and I do trust Lisa because we've had tests in our friendship and on a professional level, and I'm going to go so far to say that both of us. I am going to pat myself on the back, but I'll point at you first. That I think that we've gone through it with flying colors and A plus plus, and that has been that's rare, so rare.
Mhm.
In fact, I don't know that I've had that other than my best friend. So, but in a working relationship, and I cannot recommend Lisa enough. So yeah. So tell us what you're doing
Well,
with the school, because you're moving it or have moved it to Go Brunch to this platform. I'm excited. This is why part of why I wanted to do this conversation, because I want to start introducing people to this platform, to using this instead of Zoom. And we can do a lot more with this than Substack Live, though. I'm still a huge fan of being able to take my phone and do it just at the drop of a hat and go live. Nothing takes the place of that, but it's different than what we're doing here. So tell us about the school, Lisa.
about the school.
About the school.
Um, so I have a lot of information and a lot of understanding about web technology. And so all I knew was that there were certain technologies I didn't want to use to build the school. And so we actually, the classes themselves are in Thrivecart Learn, which is a pretty basic platform, but it's easy for students. I had built it on World Anvil and I loved it on World Anvil and it was beautiful on World Anvil, but students kept getting eaten by dragons. So we couldn't do that. So we moved it over to Thrivecart Learn. Um, but that's a very typical cold learning platform. It's exactly what you expect from an online learning platform. And I started doing a lot of one-on-ones and group meetings with my students and that kind of thing. And so I was living on Zoom until you introduced me to Go Brunch, and you could tell my first reaction was what, why, and then my second reaction was how quickly can I give them my money and how quickly can I start building my school.
I gotta stop you right
Um,
here. So tell everyone. So I took you on a tour for what we spent like 20 minutes, half an hour in the old version. if you guys scroll up, and I'll show it here on the camera. So if you scroll up on this page, let me grab the scroll bar. If you go up, see that button there on the right, that arrow. Well, don't do it now. it'll take
Okay,
you
that'll be
it'll
gone.
it'll take you to the welcome cafe. And it used to be a tavern that had, like, what did we have, like 30 little bodies with no heads, with these little round cameras on all the heads. So, and I showed her through there and showed her just like this room. This is not AI. This is all from my
This is
hands. And I just thought, look, Lisa, we could theme things. Your school could be anything. You could be, anyway. And then I had to go to bed. And so we said bye, and then we got together first thing in the morning on Discord, and I was like, "So, I'm so anxious. So, did you stick around? Did you like what you saw?" And she's like, "Oh, I already bought it." And I'm like,
I think I had already
"Yeah."
started building. Yeah, I had already started building. And what I've been doing is going back to my college days and thinking, what did I love? What was great? What was useful? What was helpful? Talking to the teachers in the school. What do you need? We've got the screenwriting classes now. It's like, do you need a theater? Let me build you a theater? Talking to different students. What do they need? What we can do to really encourage them and to try to build a community where the students are encouraging each other, and it's not just one person going through flat lessons, but like people getting together and doing writing sprints, or just hanging out in a room together, or sitting on the lawn, right? Going
Yeah.
out and taking your material and you're studying it and you're sitting on the lawn. Or one of the groups was like, oh, we wish we could have a writers group meetings. I'm like, hey, you can have your writers group meetings. You want a beach? Let's put a beach. Um, and so we've just been bringing that together, and just so now I have my group meetings in the school. We built teachers' offices for all the teachers.
Those are fun.
Um, I had to make a bigger hallway because I have more teachers.
Did
Um,
you really?
I had to put a hallway in so people can go into the hallway and they can decide which teacher's door they're going to go through.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, yeah, and each of the teachers got to theme their own room, and
Wow.
so you get the world building essence of the teachers, and it's awesome.
Oh, and you also learned how to, excuse me, you also learned how to embed sound.
Yes, because you needed sound, and I needed sound because I needed sound. I needed waves for one of my ocean rooms, and it was just you can't have that beautiful ocean without having the sound of waves. Um, I live on a tiny island, and our waves are this high, like a blip, blip. So I really need the sound of waves.
Yeah.
Um, so I figured out how to embed that, and yeah, we've been having a blast.
Joe's asking, Lisa, what are the range of classes and topics your school provides, and what is your vision or future plans for your school? Good questions.
Ooh, that's a good one. We are just getting started with the classes. My hope is to eventually have, so it's No Stress Writing Academy, and I really want to focus on anything in the writing life that gives people stress. So right now I've got, the Wonderful Writer's Life, which is more of a mental health type one, or a creative, let's get you through any kind of, what Jamie doesn't want to talk about, any kind of pretend writer's block that might be happening, get you out of that headspace
I'm
into a
going to
better
defend my
headspace.
point in a minute. Okay.
I know you are, and I'm not going to disagree with you, because I can get people out of that headspace pretty quick.
Okay.
Um, we have the screenwriting, so that takes and teaches that. We have Sally's structure classes. We have Osandra, Wordy Girl. She's teaching a bunch of tech classes and doing a lot of coaching now, which is really cool. She's doing a lot on World Anvil to help people learn how to use that tool. Um, let's see. I usually teach tech, so websites and social media and all the things like that. And then there's this guy named Jamie Buckley, who's teaching Substack, and then you've got a new class coming. What's your new class? I'm sure I
Yeah,
forgot. Oh, I forgot Amy. She's got the media kits. So people who have
those
troubles
are
doing,
helpful. Those are very helpful media
yeah,
kits.
she actually has templates and everything on that. And Sally's got a new class coming out on killing people. So it'll be a safe class that writers can take without hopefully getting on some sort of watch
Call
list.
it safe murder.
Like, it's the watch list free. Although I don't know, Joe is here, so he's probably going to put us all on a watch list. But so Jamie, tell us about your new class.
I don't know the name we're gonna call it, but everyone here, you can click on any of these books that are around us, the 5 books that are here, the small one that's right here on the table. This is Advanced World Building. I've been doing advanced world building for a very long time. Maybe the background with the the book itself and these things. I okay. The way that my brain works, we gotta step back. We'll get to what the course will be, but I want to step back because there's that thing about uh, writer's block. It's not a thing. It's really not a thing. That bothers me. When World Anvil interviewed me twice, I was like, it's really not a thing. And the way that I know this is if you, I mean, try this exercise. If you've ever had problems with not knowing what to write, that's not, I don't look at that as writer's block. What happened is you're not allowing your brain to actually talk to you. So if you put away all your distractions, which means you turn off your computer, you turn off your television, you turn off your, like me, I listen to Spotify, turn everything off, all the distractions, put away your phone, put it away from you out of a room. If you're willing to isolate yourself in a room and not be distracted by anything or anyone and sit in silence, I guarantee your mind is going to get so bored, it is going to start talking to you every single time. Okay, so that's why I say, no, it's not a thing. It's just we keep throwing up blockades for our brains to actually function the way that they should. So when I learned that decades ago, I had an idea. I was like, well, wait, that connected with something that I learned because I used to be, for a very short time, I was a bodyguard. I know it's a weird job thing to throw in there. It was very short lived. I lasted less than 3 weeks and I got fired. Not because anyone got hurt, by the way. It was just I got too attached to the people. I got too attached to my client. My client was like, "What the hell are you doing? You are fired." I was like, "Oh, this is not good." It's just my personality. I care about the people that I'm around. I do not have the temperament for that. But I was learning physical skills and dealing with violent people. One of the things that I really delved into was how to self-defense. Self-defense is the things that you do. It's your awareness and to avoid and everything else. As soon as it becomes physical, it's no longer self-defense. That's just damage control. Okay, so I'm really good at damage control, but the part, sorry, I like damage control. That's another reason why I'm not good for that job. I was a street kid growing up. Anyway, the point here is that the whole de-escalation is I learned that when someone was going to encroach upon me and be violent with me, I could, in the moment of them really intensifying and coming closer to me, I could ask them a question, not a bizarre off, but just a question like, if someone's really angry is going to punch me in the head, is like, what would your mom think about this? And it was just like they'd be like I had slapped them or thrown cold water in their face, and they'd be like, "What?" And what I learned was our brains, when given a relevant, even though it's off the cuff, a relevant question, our brains have to answer that question. So I took that from martial arts and went, wait, would that work with world building with writer's block? No, that's not a thing, but it's the best term I've got. Can you do that? So could there be a way to force your brain, compel your brain on purpose to be creative? And the answer was absolutely yes. And I was like, because I could do it with me, but I, I, I'm not the norm. I'm not saying better than anybody. I'm just saying I am so off my rocker. It's like I have to test it with other people. So I had a good friend and a mentor, David Farland, who wrote the Rune book, the Rune Lord series, and quite a few other books. He's a God bless him and rest his soul. He passed away, but he was a New York Times and international bestselling author. Just look up David Farland, and he was the one that encouraged me to do the books that I'm doing now. So I had already studied with him. I had already published some books, and I knew I know he's very busy, but I had this idea, and I took it and I emailed him and said, David, I've got this idea for a book for world building. I use this, and I thought, would this be useful to anyone? You've been in the industry for so long and know so many people. If it's already been done, then I just don't want to bother. I'll just use it myself, and I'll go on. But would this be useful? Normally he gets back to me in a few days, maybe a week, because the guy's always busy. He got back to me in like 30 minutes. And he's like, Jamie. He says, you have got to make this. He says, the only time this concept's ever been done, he says, it was done like, I can't remember the exact year. It's like 40 something years ago. He says, by Isaac Asimov. And that book is no longer in print. You cannot get it. You need to write this concept for your generation. And I'm like, would you do a cover quote? He's like, why, yes, I would. And he did. And I went, well, that's a hell of a thing. Okay, then I will do it. And so I wrote the little manual, the little book that's right there on the table, and then realized I took the concept of what I call trigger questions, which compels your brain to be creative. Then these 4 bigger books, which are the journals, and I actually have a bunch. I keep a bunch of them here at the house. They're 400-page. These are all in print. They're 400-page journals with a table of contents, an indexing ability. It has sheets in it, but it also, with each of the sheets, it has the trigger questions. And I just got to the point where I figured out that a certain number of trigger questions, that it compelled your brain to go from one creative thing to another and to build on each other. So the idea for the new book and for a class exclusive in No Stress Writing Academy is I wondered if there was a way, and I believe that I found it. Still have to test it on somebody. But I believe that there's a way. I've got hundreds of trigger questions. And I've been spending the last few years connecting them in a specific way, because I wondered if you could take a book, one of these gigantic 400-page or maybe even bigger books, and start with one question. So if you're a new person that has never developed a fictional world, open the book, read the first question, answer the first question, then answer the second question all the way through. And when you're done, you will have a dense, deep, creative world to write whatever you want from that book. That's what I wanted to achieve. And that's what I want to put in a course. Yeah. You mean Joe, what's the name of that book? You mean the book that's actually here in the room, or the one that I want to do? Because I have no
Advanced
idea
world.
what I'm with all those trigger
With
questions.
all the trigger
Oh,
questions.
it's called Advanced Worldbuilding. And I own advancedworldbuilding.com, so nobody can take it, but it's on Amazon. You can click on that little book right there and it'll take you to Amazon. So these are all live links. So that's another thing you can do with this platform. You can put things in here and just link to whatever you need to.
I have it
So
all digital and I love it. It's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. And what did your son find the other day while he was out shopping?
Oh my heck. Oh, I should have had the photograph ready up here. So my son was out with his friends and they went I can't remember, they're a couple cities away, and they went to a gaming shop. I guess they rented a room, they were doing a role-playing game. And he came home the other night. He was like, Dad, you've got to see this. Like, what? And he's usually showing me memes. It's like, dude, I'm writing. I don't want to see me. No, you got to see this picture. It's got a picture of a bookshelf. I'm like, so? And he says, Dad, look. And he blows it up, blows it up on his phone. He goes, I went into a game shop. We're looking at new RPG games to buy. He goes, your advanced world building guides and the big journals were all on their shelf. He says they keep them in stock. I was like, huh. Well, that's a hell of a thing. That's awesome. So yeah, I posted. I said, send me that picture. So I took it and I circled it and I put it up on Substack. But that's kind of cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome. So yeah. Anyway, which is
That's
funny
something for
because
indie writers. That's just that's something to just celebrate as an indie,
yeah,
because if you're an indie and a store has gone to the trouble to get your books and keep them on the shelf, that tells you something, that they wanted it, and they're getting enough good feedback from their customers that they're getting it to make their customers happy.
yeah.
So
Which I hadn't actually thought that far. I just thought it's on a shelf. Hey, that's cool. I think one of the funniest things I've ever had happen is I had a librarian. I think she was from Montana. She called up. She was quite upset. And I'm like, because for a while, for a couple of years, I told readers in my blogs and stuff, I said, if you want these books in your local library, usually a lot of public libraries, if you request, like if there's like from 12 to 20 people request the same book, they'll go buy the book. So just go request the book. And I started getting lots of sales, all over the place. I had this librarian call from Montana. She was quite angry. She found my phone number and I'm like, I'm sorry. Why are you angry? She says, she actually said, what the hell did you put in those books? I was like, I don't know what you mean. I write very kid friendly books. And she's like, I cannot keep the books on the shelves. She says, I've had to stop a fight from two boys going and trying to grab the same book. She says, and then when these boys take the books, they steal them. They don't bring them back and we have to replace them. I said, oh, well, that's totally cool. That was not the answer she wanted. I was like, I'm sorry, but woohoo. And she's like, you're useless. That was the end of our conversation. She was like, whatever. Anyway, I thought that was so bizarre. But that's the way things go. But world building, I think people don't understand, Lisa, that if you're a fiction writer, and it doesn't matter what genre, it really doesn't. Even if you're doing, well, especially historical fiction, any of this, like I wish Daniel was in here and to explain the things he does. It still requires, if it's fiction, period, it requires world building. It
oh yeah,
always does.
oh yeah.
So,
Vicky's in here. She's been doing world building, and hers is historical.
oh, there you
Absolutely.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Joe, I just bought that book. It'll be a fun read. Yeah. A book about triggers boys to fisticuffs. Yeah, kinda. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think the most fun family world building that I've done was the baby dragon, which is oh, and your book Vicky says my book screams for world building. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, then just play and have fun. That's the great thing. Okay, so let's back up. Lisa, if you had to explain to, I want to say a noob, but I don't know if people think that's rude anymore, a newbie writer, what world building is, how would you explain world building to them?
Oh, um, well, it's something that writers do at different levels. You know, you have to bring your world to life. You have to create the world in such a way that you're going to grab your reader and drag them into it. And at least for the time while they're holding your book, and hopefully afterwards, it becomes at least as real as the world they live in. And so you're figuring out, how things work. Is there magic? Is there not magic? Is there science? Is there not science? Is this, what does life look like for people in that world?
Mm-hmm.
So, for Vicky, she's got historical life of Genghis Khan, actually the life of his wife, and it's a romance and it's beautiful. But anyway, but you've got very different culture, very different, you know, societal norms and that kind of thing. And the deeper you go into that, the more little details that you can weave through the story, the more immersive that becomes. And so for me, world building is kind of reaching out and grabbing the reader by the throat and dragging them into your world to come play with you. So I don't know. Is that the answer you want?
Yeah, well, I always like perspectives on I think world building is giving a story life or
Mm-hmm.
the foundation to build a story upon. And the fun thing is that I I don't know, how do you feel about this, Lisa? Do you feel that there is a limit to the world building you should do?
Oh my goodness. That's one of those questions. And I'm actually fairly light on the world building in most of my worlds. I'm surprisingly light. I need to get stronger with it. Um, I would say that the limit is if you get to the point to where you've lost your ability to write the story and you've gotten caught up in the world building and you're not writing the story. I don't think, I don't think there's too much. I don't think there's too little that you can do as long as it accomplishes your purpose. But it is,
So if you can write the story, then it's good. So what
yeah.
about you find you get to a place and you realize, have you or any of your writers gotten to the point where they're working on the story and they're doing well, then all of a sudden come to a point where they realize, oh, wait, there's a gap. Do you pause and say, we need to do some more world building?
Hmm.
Cool.
If we need to, we get some more world building, or we see why is there a gap there? Is there a gap that's actual world building isn't been done, or is it we went in the wrong direction and
Right.
the actual characters are over there and we're over here. What do we need to do? But yeah. Yeah, and the lovely thing about world building is it doesn't have to be 100% complete before you can write the story.
Yeah. You
In
know,
fact, I like it better if you don't, because then you can go, what would be really evil to have happen here? Hey, that's a thing.
uh, I've never experienced that. Yeah. Uh, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Every writer, every time. What can I do that would really spice this up? Yeah.
Oh. Oh gosh. That's where I will always put in a plug for World Anvil because it's still next to my own brain and my own computer. That's still my favorite tool of everything in the whole world is World Anvil because that's where you take your world building and you can bring it to life over there and use it as a Bible for everything that you create. Which, yeah, I want to play more over there and get back to that
I'm
too.
loving merging World Anvil and Go Brunch. I've got a
Yeah.
lot more than I want to do, but they just beg to be together. Um, and yeah, I need something like World Anvil when I'm writing. I just need it. I got used to having it years ago before World Anvil and another software that's since died. And I
Mm-hmm.
just, when I saw World Anvil, I was like, mine, please.
So
In fact,
good.
I abused Janet until she gave me a lifetime membership because I couldn't survive without it.
Well, I'm glad you did that though, because I'm going to be getting one this next year. So, yeah. I mean, I've been there since what, 2019. I only got there like 2 or 3 months before you, I believe. Didn't you do that 2019?
You know what's weird is I think I actually saw it earlier on and didn't connect what it was.
Huh.
I didn't give it enough time to see it. So I actually had an account. When I went back in 2019 to sign up, I already had an account. And I was
Really?
like, how was this not a thing I was using? Yeah.
It's funny. It's kind of like me with social media accounts. It's like when a new social media platform comes out, and I don't use hardly any of them, but I make sure that I grab my name and
Oh,
Wanted Hero so nobody manipulates whatever. Yeah. But no, and I went there for something completely different. I went there for maps. And I know you hate when I say this, but I think it's funny. I found World Anvil through a naked fat man on Twitch. You know, I was learning what Twitch was. I had no idea what it was, and my son was like, "You should check this out, Dad. Why? You're watching people play video games. Yeah, but look, there's a whole new section that's writers and artists. They're trying to make a new section." I was like, "Huh." So I started going through, and there was this guy that was. It said is when they had the little thumbnails, and it said, that he was making world maps, and I was like, I was right at the point where I was designing a map for Wanted Hero. So I clicked on it and I was like, there's a guy, and it's a guy in his room, and it's, I don't know if he's got a studio apartment, but it's like he was like drinking and smoking. He had a beard, he had food in his beard, whatever. And he had no shirt. So as far as I'm concerned, he was probably naked, just fat as could be, but jolly and funny. And he kept going back and forth between his camera and showing what he was doing on his computer. I was like, dude, that is the coolest map I've seen in years. And I said, what do you use to make and to display this map? He says, I use World Anvil. And all I said was, what's World Anvil? And
oh
he
no.
and he says, this was his reply. Are you stupid? No, no, I have not heard of this. And they were new. Okay, by 2 years, but new. And I was like, that's awesome. He says, well, this is it. And he puts the link in there, and I'm like, click on the link. Bye. I don't need, fat naked men on my screen. Thank you very much. So I went over to World Anvil. I was like, what is this? This is so nice. I immediately signed up for a free account. By the end of the day, I had already used everything up. And I went, wait, is there better? And then you went up to the, what is it? Is it Journeyman? I forget the names. So is it Journeyman?
Is free.
Journeyman's free. And then it was what? Master? No,
Master,
Master, and then Grandmaster.
Master.
So I went, I'll pay. So I paid for the year. So I did Master. And by the end of 6 days, I'd used all that up. I'd maxed out. I was like, wait. I'm looking at other worlds, their database. I'm like, wait, how are you doing that? And so I would.
Well, you did have more world building already done than the average person does in their lifetime.
True. Yeah. For the record, I've got like 3 million. I've got a lot more than that now. I don't know how much, but over 3 million words and notes. And so I was like, I need to get that on World Anvil. And anyway, and then it was like another 4 days, and it's not that I'd used it up, but then when you start using it a lot, you realize, because you are the exact same way as me, it's like, wait, but I want that feature, so what I'm doing looks way cooler. Yeah. And so I started doing that, and then I was like, wait, oh my gosh, there's a Discord. I use Discord with my kids. So then I lived on Discord in World Anvil. What a great community. Such great people. I was like, wait, I'm not being yelled at. I'm not being, wait, there's no trolls here. There might be now because there's so many people, but there weren't at the time. I was like, everyone's so nice. And wait.
And they're all world builders.
Yeah.
Right? They're
all
I was writers,
like, I found my people. Oh my gosh. Found my tribe. And so I just started mixing with everyone. I was like, wait, how do I get that feature? Oh, you have to have a Grandmaster account. Done. And so within 1 month, I just went da 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 da. And then 2 days after I got the Grandmaster, then Janet reached out and said, we are going to open a new category, the business version, the Sage. And I was like, what do you get with Sage? And she said, and then she gave the list, and that it was for making money for a business. And this is what I do for a living. So I was like, I'm in. I think I was one of the first, because it was the first day, I was one of the first Sages on there. I was like, this is awesome. So I spent like 4 months there, and then Dimitri reached out and says, would you like to be part of the inner sanctum? I'm like, what? He says, all the people with the blue around him. I was like, yeah, those are the people that helped me. They're so nice. It's like, yeah, they said they'd like you to have you in the group. And I was like, okay. And I've been there ever since. That's my online family, which you are a part of. I'm so glad that they
You
asked you
got
to
me
join
into
too.
Inner Sanctum. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. I don't know how I saw it the first time, but I had a free account and I hadn't really delved into it much. I was doing my world building elsewhere on a platform that shall not be named. And
Okay.
I went because I had lost my software. I had lost my good world building software, and then
Oh
I was just trying
no.
to survive. Yeah, because
Okay.
they had shut down. And so I did Nano, and they had a deal for Nano, 50% off.
Oh.
So I went and I got, it being me, because I know I'm going to be professional. If there's a professional tier, so the Sage did exist at that point, and I went ahead and just got that, um, and then realized this was going to be a real challenge for me. I needed a lifetime, and then I just started harassing Janet.
Because there wasn't a lifetime, was there? They're not.
There had been, they had done it, like, I didn't know there was, but I saw some people in the Discord had lifetime on them. And I
Well,
was like,
but
how
I
did they
thought they were
get
for the.
lifetime?
I thought they were for the Grandmaster and for the Master. I never personally saw it for Sage. I was like, there, because when you told me there's a lifetime Sage, I was like, I need that. I need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was it. I saw it somewhere on I'm pretty sure on Discord, and I was like, how do I get that? And well, we only offer that sometimes as a special. Okay, when are you going to offer that as a special? Well, we don't have any plans for it. Okay, well, can you make plans for it? Just let you know. I'm really hoping. Well, we'll try to think about that. So it's like a month later. I'm like, so Janet, I was just a total pest. I'm not normally that evil, but I absolutely was. I really was.
I would never categorize you as evil. Thank you very much. but some,
Don't give me what I want, and then you will see that side.
but oh, so I'm a compliant friend. That's what you're saying. Oh my goodness. I'm the most disagreeable individual I've ever known. Um no, but the great thing, I can never say enough good about Janet Dimitri, because they are just,
Awesome.
I like to call them just darling human beings. They are good people. And
Good people. That's exactly it.
yeah,
And finding truly good people that you love working with,
that's hard.
and especially when you're in business and
Yeah.
as creatives and that kind of thing, you need people who get creatives, and they get us. I did an interview with Janet for Writers in the Storm, and it was so long they didn't let me publish it, so I published it on my blog. Um,
Okay.
but learning their story, learning the story behind World Anvil, and I'm a sucker for a sweet romance, and it was just. I,
Didn't they meet at a D&D game?
I don't know how they met.
I That's
I
the
bet they
story
did
I
though.
think that Janet told me, is they actually met at a Dungeons and Dragons game. They played the same game and they hit it off.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
and
which I find, cuz Janet is incredibly intelligent.
oh
But
yeah,
Dimitri, at the same time, he makes geniuses look like idiots. His mind goes so fast all the time. And I'm like, yeah.
well, I mean, you think about it, is like this software, right? She has this meltdown with Google Docs, and everything goes away, and
Yeah.
she's this newlywed, with this brilliant husband, and she shows him what's going wrong, and he says, "I'll build you something for that."
Yup.
He just whips up the basics of the world anvil, and it's like, wow, that's. And I had, after my software had shut down that I had used for years, I had been approaching programmers and asking them if they would consider creating something new. And no, that's just ugly. No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want. That's too big of a project. And then so when I heard that Dimmy just said, "Oh well, I'll build you a thing," And I saw it. It's exactly what I wanted. And I'm like, yeah, that's a programmer.
So
Yeah.
I call Dimitri Santa. I always call him Santa. Thank him as Santa because he's always giving presents. But
He
it's
gives
funny,
us presents,
yeah, all the time, weekly. Oh wow,
gives us toys.
yes. And the funny thing is so I'll say this here on this program, but I never said it in World Anvil. I did say it to Janet. And I did say it to Dimitri. I think I did it in a morning coffee session with all the inner sanctum. But back in, so I started doing Wanted Hero live on the internet. I bought the domain name in 2004, launched the comic book version in 2005, and by I think the middle of 2006, I was like, okay, this is growing a lot faster than I anticipated, because I had readers in 60 countries, and I was like, I don't know why this is happening. And my dad's like, woohoo. And I'm like, where do we put all this information? I need to pull from it. So I wanted to do a world building Bible at the time. And so I did conceive of something very similar to what World Anvil is, and has totally surpassed what I was thinking of, way beyond. And just for the basic functions that still would have been like a wiki on steroids, with interactive things. And my dad has connections, and my dad as an executive, so he was helping me. He says, well, let's get a bid. Let's see if we can get some programmers from India and all that. So we got bids back. The lowest bid to, I'm going to make a guesstimate here, maybe 10% of the features only. And that might be pushing it. 10% of the features that World Anvil actually has, the lowest bid we got back was $242,000. That's not finished software. I mean, and that's still back when everything was still HTML as well.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But then when I found that, and I looked at all the features on, that's why I was pumping everything I had onto World Anvil and going, I'll pay. And which is funny because they only had you do the difference to go up to the next tier, because I was doing it within weeks, not years, right? And yeah, I never thought I'd have what I have now. And I know that I'm not using it as, to the extent that most of the power users are now doing it. So I want to get my boys help and my daughter's help. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a dad of 13, no twins, no adoptions, same wife. And I like to say I have all boys but 9. Anyway, yeah, I World Anvil, there's just, I can't say enough about it. And I'm looking forward to making a better blend. This is what I do on World Anvil, this type of a studio setup, and yeah, I'm looking
You
forward
know,
to what you do at the school. That's for sure.
I've been just trying with World Anvil to make the world as immersive as possible, to bring people into that space in my head. And then along comes Go Brunch. And now I can really bring them into that space. And the two just have to combine. I haven't had the time to do it because I want to get the school solid first. And I'm still moving. Some of my classes all needed to be rewritten because, WordPress. But yeah, technology is changing, so I have to rewrite all my classes
Yeah, but
for
the
modern.
technology didn't have to change if it wasn't for evil people. I'm going to point that out. You don't have to say a thing. I'll say all of it. I'll take all the bad credit. You rotten scumbuckets. You dirtbags. You mud butts. Yeah.
Just destroy one of our best tools for writers.
Mm.
It's fine, and then just yeah, don't even care that yeah, they'll be fine. They'll
I had
forgive me.
already
They'll be
jumped ship a year and a half ago to Substack. See, this is where I'll say, okay, I agree. World Anvil and Go Brunch, perfect merging. For me,
Substack.
it's a trio. I will not do anything without Substack. Substack was absolutely the best move I've ever made. I shut down all my other websites, everything. I have my 3 Substacks. I'm ignoring 2 for now. but bringing all of that here and connecting that. So Substack is my flagship. Everything's under Life of Fiction. And then Wanted Hero is the biggest IP under Life of Fiction. So, and that's where my passion is. And then bringing everything to life so that we can also mix live with people. Nothing does a better job than Go Brunch. I'm having so much fun with this. I like popping into your office once in a while, just going, hey, what's up?
What's up? Yeah, I love my office. I love my office. And Richard, the developer of Go Brunch,
Uh-huh.
is just like, spend time in your spaces. And I'm like, that is so cool. And a lot of people were like, why? But once you get it, you get it, and you have
Yeah.
that environment that you can be in, and you begin to be in the environment. And it really, it's amazing. And one of the things that um, yeah, don't type that word. Sorry, I got distracted by Joe. Voldemort. Yeah, we'll call him Voldemort. Um, uh, so yeah,
Dun,
it's
dun, dun.
you know, I was looking at this because this is where my brain is right now, because a third of my business got destroyed by he who shall not be named, and
Voldemort. Voldemort,
yeah,
Voldemort, Voldemort. There we go. Nothing
destroyed a
happened.
third of my business, and a lot of my clients, it really put them in bad situations,
Yeah.
and trying to deal with that. And then you show me this thing, and I'm like, I don't have time for this thing right now. I'm shoveling as fast as I can, trying to finish building the school, trying to do all of this other stuff. And then I looked at this thing and I'm like, you could build websites with that, and that's where my brain just kind of went, wait a minute, we could build websites with that. And I haven't gone as deep into that as I want to yet, but I have so many plans.
I know, but look at this room right here. So remember, because last night you're saying, well, where's your book? Where's the world building book? I was like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Just grab the picture. Okay. So I grabbed the picture. And then the other ones, the 3D drawings I pulled from World Anvil, I was like, oh, let's just pull out the transparent PNGs, put them in here, put the code, the link. Now, guess what? Right here, while we're doing this, I have a live store. So anyone who comes in here and visits, you can click on any of those books. Or if you want coffee, and I'm telling you, the best coffee ever, Lisa will attest to this, click on my mug. You'll
Yeah,
support
that's
you'll
good
support one
coffee.
you'll support
That's good
one of the
coffee.
great causes of our age right now.
Yeah.
So,
So one of the questions we were asked is if we have office hours. Um,
oh,
Sometimes. One of the things that I'm working on is embedding some schedules for some of the rooms in the school. So I have a co-working space in my school. It's the student union, and the students can just pop in at any point and sit there and write together or not write together, or they can pop over to the coffee shop and chat, that kind of thing. Um, I don't have specific office hours, but that's mostly because it's one of the things that I learned that just blew me away, because I did not know this was a thing, and it helped me understand myself so much.
what's that?
You have introverts and extroverts,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And you have, people who have different strengths or whatever, and you usually have the opposite. Well, it turns out that how you perceive time is a thing. And some people perceive time very linearly. Some people perceive time very creatively, like a lot of flow. And if you take somebody who works in flow, like I tend to do, which means, when I got married, my husband had to agree that if he came home and there was no dinner and the house was a mess, he was supposed to say, "Oh, hi, darling, you have a good day. You had a good day, didn't you?" Because, I'll be sitting at my desk and I won't even know what's happened, right?
Okay.
And so I work in flow. So if you put me into a situation where I have to keep specific times and I have too many scheduled times that I have to be in during the day, my brain starts shutting down
You and
and I
I are
start getting,
exactly the same. I'm the exact same way. Yes.
yeah. So
I
I don't
totally get
have
that.
specifically posted office hours. I do have specific ask me anything hours that I'll have so that people can schedule to come to those.
Well, because those are the
Um,
events that you're setting up. So you're choosing to do that. That's still different.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I've been doing with, instead of overscheduling and overfilling my schedule with all of these set times is I'll just go into my Go Brunch office, and there's a door. There's a door that you can lock the door.
Oh yeah.
And so if I leave the door open, it's just like, my favorite university professor that I could go and knock on his door and go in and ask a question about world building back then, right? And so I leave that door open most of the time. People pop in, we have discussions. If I get into a situation where it's a little more sensitive, I'll lock the door so we can have a private conversation. Or if somebody's scheduled with me that's their time, then I'll lock the door. But most of the time, the door's open and people can just pop in and out. And you never know when I might be there. I might even be there in the middle of the night sometimes. So, yeah.
Well,
So
that's fun
hopefully that
because
answers you.
it's funny because that if it was locked, that you could knock on the door, and that's one of the features here is that if the door is locked, someone tries to get in, we actually do hear a knocking on the door, which I think is brilliant.
It
Um,
is.
yeah.
I've asked for a feature that I can slip a note back out under the door, but I don't have that yet. Because that's me. I'm never content with anything.
So,
And good.
well, I was gonna say, so the other thing and you're saying about regular hours, the great thing about this is that um, we are creating, and this is what Zoom cannot do and does not
Yeah.
do, and that is we are creating these spaces that these are open 24/7, 365 days out. They're always available. These are permanent spaces. So, like this is my studio, and this is where I'm going to be having conversations like this one. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. This is a lot of fun. Um, and so that I can do the recordings that is open to the public to come and to join us here. One of the few colored spaces, by the way, because I prefer to do things in black and white. But if you go to the Fiction Hub or the Welcome Cafe, that's what's connected to this room. It's downstairs in this building. I got to start getting into the habit of saying it's in this building. It's downstairs. It is a cafe for everyone to come and visit. And there is, thank you to Lisa, there is the background sound of the cafe, which is the same sound that I use for my podcasts. Um, and I have the little things on the tables. I've got a hello, Han. I've got various books on different tables. I left BB Wing's album is on one table that you can click on that and go listen to BB Wing. And it's just fun to have these things that slowly, as more tools are developed or more options or products or whatever, I'm going to be able to put them in different places in these different rooms. But when you say immersive, what's going to be fun is I have the public free area here, and I'm developing the connections to all the books and stories from Life of Fiction. So every time I have a new story, a new series, I'm going to create a new portion of the world and connect it. And I'm developing a room called the Port Key Room, where a port key, which is from the books, is something that is a little tiny disc on a chain, and usually merchants keep it around their neck. It's to get to and from the black market, which is completely different rules for selling. And I have a room that has all these port keys will be hanging from this very, very crowded room. So you'll have to figure out which port key goes where, because none of them are going to be labeled. And slowly but surely, I will continue to build this world. And here's the fun part: everything will be, except for the port keys, everything will be in black and white. You won't know what's clickable and what's not. That's the fun of it. So I gotta get for you. I gotta get the Roadkill Tavern done for the social
Yes.
space, but I gotta get the world building room there. Oh, oh gosh. That's what I'm working
So
on
many places. I mean,
hardest.
that's it. There's so many places, and it's like when you look at Zoom, we've gotten into this thing where it's a specific hour, it's a specific length. If you don't have the paid account, you have short times, you have to talk,
Right.
you can't just ramble. And this is so different.
It is.
It's 24/7. This is a website. It's not a specific, space like that. This is a website. People can come in and go, and each person can have their own interaction. You can wander around the room, um, and you can just have fun with it. And they've got the technology so open for us that we can hide all sorts of stuff in there. And I'm still just learning what I can do, but it's like every once in a while I'm like, can I do that? Hmm. Yeah. And then
It's
I'll
fun.
send JB some code. Hey, stick this somewhere and look at what it
Try
does.
it. Try this. And it works. It's so much fun. That's why this is so much better than what I thought it would be, because you solved my problems. Thank you so much. Give me options. Oh my goodness. Okay, world building. We covered pretty much all the things that I wrote on my little yellow pad. I know I sent all those questions last night, but I'm wondering if anybody has any questions that they want me or Lisa to answer, because we can do that as well. So go ahead and put that in the chat and let me find another question, because
No, Joe, I have a lot of confidence that Richard will not give Voldemort access to this. Yeah, no. Richard is a creative. I'm not sure how much we can say with that, but he is a creative. He gets our heart. Now, I mean, yeah, is it possible that some multi-billionaire might, I don't know him well enough to know if he could be bought, but yeah, I think it would take a lot for him to be bought.
I know in our meeting the other day, that was that would be a pretty far stretch. That is not the impression I. He's also another person that I put in the same category as Janet Demetrian, saying he is a good human being. He is a good person.
He's a
So
good human being, and we need this platform to make him money.
yeah,
We need it to make him money, and to support him and to support his team and all of his creativity,
yeah.
because he's the kind of person that the more you support him, the more toys he's going to build for you.
We really do
Yeah,
need to get him to talk with. We need to get that meeting between him and
him
Dimitri
and
and
Demi.
Janet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
make
Those
let's make let's
they
make
just
that the
need to,
next plan. Yeah.
they just need to be friends. It's just they don't know it yet. They just need
Yeah.
to be friends.
I like saying that to people. I was like,
On
yeah,
the surface, it doesn't look like these two would go together, right? Because one's words and one's visual, but they fit together so nicely.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
but here's the funny thing. I think Janet would be the bridge. She's a little bit of
yeah,
both.
yeah.
So, yeah.
She is.
But the,
She's
I
a weird
mean,
person.
this is one of the things that I want people, because here's the funny thing about Go Brunch is, and about world building. So I think it's funny that this is our topic, but world building really is the foundation, maybe not the focus, but the foundation of Go Brunch. It's the foundation of the fiction area um, of Substack. And it is definitely the foundation, because world building, it doesn't matter if you're a writer or you're an artist or whatever, for World Anvil. So this really is the connector with all three. Um, I think what is amazing here is everyone, and it doesn't matter if you're a world builder or not, every single person on Substack can benefit from Go Brunch, the platform. And every single creative on World Anvil could benefit from Go Brunch. This helps both platforms 100%. Because one thing that I want to say this over and over again is that you can have at the maximum capacity if you have a tier 3, which me and Lisa do. But here you can have 600, and by the way, it's 602 people per room at the same time, live. And was it you that told me, oh, you can do that on Zoom? It just costs you a fortune?
It costs you a fortune. Yes,
Wow.
it costs you a fortune. We're going to have a writers conference in Go Brunch at the end of June. That's that's something that's coming that we're working on. Got a couple of really good speakers already. Got more coming, and yeah, that's um, No Stress Writing Academy is going to sponsor Um, Sarah Hamer does a lot of conferences, that kind of thing. So we're going to
Awesome.
bring one to life in Go Brunch.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, because you can have 50 breakout rooms too.
You if you do that, if you'll allow me, I'd like to help. I'd like to participate.
We'll
So,
figure out a way for that.
okay. And
Make
Joe,
that
by the
happen.
way, I'm glad that Lisa put those links in there. So yeah, the AppSumo, so the Go Brunch on there. That these are lifetime accounts. That's it it will get to the point we get enough people using this, and there are thousands of people using it, by the way. But we get enough
Oh, yeah.
people using this, then it will go to a monthly subscription. But right now, because he's trying to get the word out, and this is very smart, you can get a lifetime. And I think this is fun because I can imagine you, because if I'm remembering correctly, you write the children's books, correct? This is correct. Yeah, tier three. Yeah, no. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, tier three only is 7K annually. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. But here's the thing. With through the app Sumo, I think it's under $300
Yeah.
for tier
For
three
lifetime for
for
tier
the
three.
lifetime. That's a steal.
And you have to put it into the context of hosting too. Since it's a website, you're looking at this is a type of hosting space. And for that, it's just it's a no-brainer. And they're strong servers, they're good servers. Um, and yes, Joe writes fiction, nonfiction, and children's books. But when I was working on Joe's website, one of the things I loved about his website was when he was working on the kids stuff, he really gets that this is about the reader,
Hmm.
that this is about creating something, creating an experience for the reader. And that's something I have trouble getting a lot of writers to understand, because they're in the mindset of, this is my website, this is for me, what do I need it to do?
Right.
And one of the things that I loved about Joe, at a time when I was not taking any website clients, I took Joe, because he came to me and said, I want to create an experience for my readers. And he's got games and things, and he let me build a interactive puzzle that they can do, that he can drop random pictures in whenever he wants a new puzzle. Um, yeah and it's just, there's just so much interactivity and fun, and it's just, so we did a lot with his website.
Uh huh.
It's a lot of fun. It's JW Zarek, Zarek dot.
Put a link in there. Go ahead. Or Joe, put a link to your website in the
Yeah,
chat.
Joe, put a link in it for me.
Yeah,
There you
there you
go.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, and it's, you got to go to the kids pages, because different things happen on the kids pages than
I
happen on
did. It
the
was
adult.
way fun, by the way. If you're a
Yeah,
parent, it's a way fun website. It's adorable.
I wish I had more time. I mean, this came to me at a time when I was like underwater and everything, and I still took time to do it because it was so much fun. But yeah, it's
One of the things, Joe, that I think Go Brunch would be great for is doing things with doing things with book clubs. You could do readings. You could visit with schools. You could you could even do things, if a parent wants to buy a birthday package. I mean, there's so many fun things that you could do in this, because you get to theme every single experience any way you want. And I mean, this is just so great. So all these things I'm suggesting, this is what I've been thinking about for my fiction books. So yeah, I mean, it's just so much fun. I'm even trying to figure out a concept of how can I theme a room using, I got to figure it out. I want to theme a room using the pages of my comic books as the walls and the floors I just want to figure out how to do it without it being confusing. Maybe a gallery that you're walking through and having all I don't know, but yeah.
I can't tell the whole thing, but I have a museum that will be coming out. Museum that's going to be coming out, and it's going to be an inner. Yeah, yeah,
Well, this
and yeah, it's a hallway, a museum hallway. Yeah,
well, that's
that's it.
exciting.
Do the
Yeah.
same thing there, Jamie. Do a museum hallway with all your pictures framed on the wall,
Yeah,
and then let
yeah.
people. let people climb into it. Let people climb into it because it's a thing you can do.
We can do that. I thought this would also be a fun thing too, that you could create an experience and then contact libraries, have reading hour, or, ask the author anything type things. And look at the way that you could hook up with libraries or communities or anything.
You know,
It's the same
several of
thing
my
with business
clients,
meetings. I mean,
yeah, I mean, several of my clients do readings for children and that type of thing. And I was talking with a client the other day who has a nonfiction book and was talking about how their speakers who are really in demand are exhausted from the travel, but they want to go and have that connection that you just can't get on Zoom. And I was like, yeah, but you can do it on this. And that was one of the things with the expo we were testing. And that particular author was like, yeah, I see what you mean. Because this doesn't trigger, I just wrote an article about it. I can't remember if it's out yet or not because I don't know. But time. Anyway, um, where you talk about, you know, the Zoom fatigue and the way that the way you have to interact with Zoom actually triggers that fight or flight syndrome in people. And over time, oh yeah, that's a thing. 3.2 seconds. If you stare eyeball to eyeball with somebody in your face for 3.2 seconds, I guarantee it will trigger that damage control feature in you. And so by taking it into a space here where we're not staring eyeball to eyeball, we're enjoying our conversation, we're comfortable with sitting back in chairs,
your eyes are going
and
around and looking at the environment, if it's a good environment, this
yeah,
is.
and it doesn't feel like I'm, ignoring you if I glance away, because that's the way it is in real life. Yeah. And that's this is very comfortable and it fits that well. And so we can get these advanced speakers, stick them up on a stage, and put a great big pile of people in a room, and everybody can interact, they can be social, and they can come to the event, no travel expenses, all of those sorts of things, and the speakers aren't exhausted. So yeah, it's a good thing. And I don't get migraines. I appreciate that.
And you did before with Zoom?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I was the way I was using Zoom before, I would have 2 to 3 days a week where I had my entire day booked, hour by hour by hour, from meeting to meeting to meeting. And so by the end it was just I couldn't work. I had to just go lay down and, turn off the lights. I was in so much pain. So yeah. Zoom fatigue is a thing.
That I believe. I've been in a lot of meetings. We've both been in a lot of meetings, and you're like, I'm done, but you can't leave because you're usually running the meeting. It's
I'm
like
running
I
the
can't
thing.
go.
Yeah.
you know.
I was on Zoom before the pandemic, and before we had Zoom, I used a lot of remote control software where I could take over people's computer on
Mhm.
remote and that type of thing. So I have been used to working online with people for more years than most people have realized you can do it.
Well, I was doing, and I can't remember the name. It was a really white textured, and they were the big name at the time. This is back in 2008, I think, 2007, 2008. And I was training 1,080 people every Monday morning by myself. My three partners did other things, and it's funny, I was the computer guy. I'm not a tech guy. You know that. I'm not a tech guy. But they were so definitely not the tech guy. Apparently I looked like a tech guy cuz I like my computers, but
Well, you're a good
uh
teacher too. Being a good teacher sometimes can get over a lot of tech
I think if you
challenges.
just like people, you'll actually do better.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I've taught youth for I taught youth for like 26 years, and small classes. A lot of it was church stuff. I think I taught probably close to 12, 1,300 kids over that span of 26 years face to face. My classes were more often than not standing room only. I had kids that I did from 12 to 14. And I always say I prefer the 12-year-olds. And they ask why. I says, because you're all a bunch of little craps. And I would say that to the kids every year. And they would go home and they would tell their parents. And I'm like, they
Oh
are,
no.
they are a bunch of little craps. I always tell them the same thing. And I said, you're all a bunch of craps. And I said, and I love you. And here's why I teach this class, why I adore the 12 to 14-year-olds. I said, because you're right at a point in your life where you have grown up, you have all the stuff that, your mom's taught you, your dad's taught you, maybe your grandparents or other relatives. You've got, people from school, you've got people from church or Sunday school, whatever. All these folks have told you all this stuff. I says, and now that you're 12, something in your brain gets you to look out at the world and you see this split, and you're seeing this is what the world is telling you, all sparkly and wonderful and all that, and this is what all these adults have been telling you, and now you are sitting on this fence and you're testing everything. I said, but here's the curious thing. What I feel my job is to help you to use your own brain. You know the right answers, but the trouble is at 12 years old, you don't know why it's the right answer. That's my job now as your teacher. I want to show you, and I don't mind pushback. I love questions, and I don't know is a valid answer. So when I know what you don't know, I know what to teach. So the way that I've always set things up with teaching, and this goes with any class, and that is I engage. So I have a quote lesson, that I got my outline, what I'll teach. What the class usually doesn't know is those are my trigger questions. As soon as during that, one of the kids says, but what about this? That is now the lesson. That is what I focus on, because that kid needs that. And chances are always greater than not in a room full of kids that kid was just the one that was willing to let it come out of their mouth.
Yeah.
And so I have standing room only in my classes because kids just stay. I remember I tried to experiment once. I was like, I wonder how well they know me. So I came in, and I think this was a class where it was just 12 and 13-year-olds. And I had had them for about 6 months. It was a church class. It was a Sunday school, and I walked in angry, and I slammed my Bible down on the desk and everything. And I'm like, all right, everybody get in your seats. And I'm yelling at them. And the boys are freaking out because, the boys and girls always separate, and the boys always sit in the back and they're leaning against the walls and all that. And the girls up front, and they're all like this. And I just started yelling, and one girl square in the center on the front row started giggling. And I said, what are you laughing about? This upsets me so much. And she goes, she didn't stop laughing. She's like, no, you love us. I was like, but I'm mad and I'm angry. And she's like, no, I can feel it. No, that's not true. And I started cracking up. I was like, you little twit. And she's like, see, kids are so much smarter than grown-ups will accept, I think. Maybe not that we realize we want them to be in this little box, but they're brilliant. And another reason why I like world building is because it is a way to open up. I agree, Joe. Kids are brilliant. World building done right, storytelling done right, opens up brains and opens up hearts. And my experience 100% of the time is the most difficult students that I've ever had, if I can touch their heart first and then their brain, not encroaching on them, but saying, it's kind of like metaphorically putting your arm around their shoulder and looking out at the sunrise, there in the horizon, saying, what do you see? Not what I'm trying. And I've never been the adult that says, do what I say because I say it. I've always asked any of my children, ask any of my grandchildren, they will tell you, no, Dad or Papa says, this is why I'm asking to do it. This is why we do what we do. Now I'm asking you to do it. And now if you don't, yeah, you're toast. So, but I never say do this because I say so. Why? Because I screw up a lot. And I'm not the greatest example. And I let my kids call me on stuff. I'm like, you're right. You are so right. And I apologize. I should have done better. But that's just showing them that I'm human rather than trying to just do something because I'm the adult. And world building is so good that way to connect with. It doesn't have to be kids, with anybody, to make things relatable, to make them, what's the word that they used in that world building book from David Farland? It's you just need to make things relatable, but that's not the word. I can't remember what it is. Which makes me think of a question I want to ask you, actually. So, because since you work with other authors, I'm curious,
Yeah.
how, let's see if I can phrase this right. How do you help writers, or maybe yourself, how do you avoid info dumps when your world is already bursting with cool lore?
Okay, for that one, I go back to a Margie Lawson thing where
Okay.
she talks about you only include what the reader needs at the time. And I go back to something that she's taught on that, where she in her color coding system, where you see, because if you get into a lore dump, it's the equivalent of putting the brakes on in a car.
Really? Okay.
No, yeah, in your writing, if you get into a lore dump when you're writing, you're putting the brakes on in the action of your book. And so your book has a flow and a pattern. And sometimes you need to put the brakes on to give everybody a minute to breathe. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and so, um, yeah, like you spread it over all the pages. It's you want to think about what does the reader need to know right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes there's something that you need the reader to get in their subconscious, that they need to have in their subconscious before something happens, so that then they can go, oh, wait a minute, wasn't that, so you can slip those in earlier. But you want to try to slip these things in just enough. And then you also want to think about what you need to have around to make it feel real. Okay. One of the really cool things, and I believe I learned this from Margie, but I know I've heard it from others as well. Readers are very forgiving. If you leave out something, they will fill it in their head. And so the trick is that you need to have enough filled in that they don't imagine that you've said something else. In
Right.
other words, they will fill in. So you have to fill in just enough, but then they want to be immersed. They've paid money for this book. They want
Right.
to be drawn in.
Right.
So they're going to fill that in their head without even realizing they're doing it. So you're just trying to keep enough to keep them in the world, to make the world feel real. And it's a tightrope. It's a tightrope. Actually, Vicky with her Mongol Empire, there's a lot of world building in there. There's a lot of names that don't make sense to our Western ears. There's a lot of words and a lot of things, and yet you need all of that because you want to be immersed in that culture. And so it's a tightrope that you walk to, exactly how far down that path can you take your reader without losing them, and how immersive can you make it feel so that they're enjoying it, they're enjoying the foreign environment to
Right.
them, right? Because we're thinking about Western readers,
Right.
and yet it feels real to them and it feels alive, and they don't feel lost.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I try to explain to people with, like, so we both agree here. There's no such thing as too much world building. How you
No.
use it and how you reveal it is something else. Because one of the things that I rely on heavily, this because you know me, we have these conversations, is sometimes I will build out all this world building that is so intricate and so connected on so many different levels, but 99.9% of it will never be read by a reader. But that was not the point. The point is I need to have those events to do those things for me to know how person A, B, and X will interact because it affects all of them in very specific ways. So, was that world building necessary? Yes. But you, as the reader, are only getting the effect or the fruit of how these people act because of those events that you're just not aware of. So, that's, yeah.
And the thing about places like World Anvil, okay, is that you get different levels of readers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody has had that experience where you come to the end of a book and you close the book and you're sad, not because you don't like the ending, but just because you closed the book and now you don't have more. Having something like World Anvil, where there's a lot more story, where there's a lot of
Yes.
little Easter eggs that you can go and dig out, where there's a lot of little experiences that you can have, helps give that reader the thing that they want most, which is more. And so when a reader feels that sadness, and then in the last page there's like, want more, go here, and they stumble into Wanted Hero,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And they're on wantedhero.com, and they're not just seeing, oh yeah, he wants me to buy other books, but they're seeing, wait, what's this? What is Chuck doing here? Wait, there's a whole story. There's a whole adventure here. There's a
Yep.
whole series of adventures that are just sprinkled around through these articles, and that they can then explore. My chickens article, for example, where you find things and you're just like, what is this thing? And it's just to give the flavor and just the richness. So now, instead of feeling like they just read a book, they have discovered a world and they're pulled into it, and now they can interact with it and they can explore it, and it can become
Yes.
something that they enjoy. And
Yes.
that's where you get from a reader to a super fan who's going to go and grab their best friend and go, oh my gosh, you have to come and see this,
Exactly. Exactly. That is the best. I think that's probably the best point of this whole conversation. What my number one little side thing. I made it for, I think it was for summer camp, but I had a concept and I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Yep, I'm just gonna do it. It's gnomes anyway. So the my number one thing, you know how you can track, what has the most clicks, the most traffic, and everything else of all your articles. You want to just take a wild guess of what subject am I, and it has to do with gnomes. So that narrows it down quite a bit. But among gnomes, I wouldn't have thought this in a million years, actually, myself, and I was blown
What?
away. Have you ever seen the article Bobo, my dog, the genetically modified pug for the gnomes?
Oh.
I was blown away. I couldn't believe how many people were looking at that. I was like, what? And then, because I did all the realistic of I invented
It's all about
the,
pets. I
it's
tell
all
you,
about
the
pets.
internet is all about dogs and cats.
No, but the
Yeah.
funny thing with it is genetically modified, and then I created the science team and the corporations and the breeding and all the different people, and then the top trainer and all this, and I put them all together, and then I actually went through and I did all the legal. So all the legal at the bottom of the page, the disclaimers for gnomes and things like that, and everything there, and people just laughed. They're like, what else do you do with gnomes? Oh, well, you should look at Clockwork's Idol. You saw that last night. So,
That is cool.
but
Yeah.
those are
And
all,
wars, and I mean, the thing
yeah.
about a really richly designed world is that you don't have to put all of the world building in any particular book.
Yep.
You have series after series, and I am certain you will never plumb the depths of the world that you've created.
No.
um,
Yeah.
it's just so much fun.
But that's how that all started. I was such a diehard fan of Terry Pratchett and Discworld. And I was like, when I started, I mean, I was hooked the very first Terry Pratchett book that I ever read. I mean, I had watched, The Color of Magic, the little show, I was like, I love the way this guy thinks. But I remember a friend of mine says, you need to read this. I was like, why? Well, first of all, it's from Terry Pratchett, and I'd already seen the movie. And I was like, oh, well, I'm interested. No, this is your book. What? It's going to resonate with you, and I know how you read books to your kids, trying to do the voices and everything. Like, my favorite book to read to my kids was the comic book Bone. I have like the 800 and something page comic book, and with the rat creatures, and I'm comrade, yes, let's go get quiche, you know and and I and I'll read that to the kids, but they said, you'll love this, it's we free men. Anyway, you should look that up. And oh gosh, I laughed so. I could not finish a single sentence without bursting out laughing. And my kids would laugh with me. And I was like, okay. Then you read that, you read about death, you read about all these things, and they're all in the same world. And I thought, you know, maybe I could actually take Wanted Hero and I should make this my career for the rest of my life. And I went, okay, let's do that. I can do other stuff, but this is my love. This is what I have fun doing. And there's so many stories to be told. So, I mean, Chuck's been around for a long time. So,
Chuck
yeah.
is delightful. I mean, when I first started reading Wendell's story,
Uh-huh.
I was really skeptical. I'm like, I don't really like this kid. He's a little shit. I don't like him. And then, then Dax comes in and I'm like, I don't like him, but he's kind of charming in a really weird, gross way. And then we get Chuck and I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. Just I can't read this book fast enough.
It's
Tell me more
always
about
one of
Tyler.
those three. But it's always one of those three.
And then Hoban. Now that I've met Hoban, and then now I'm hooked. So now, I'm even starting to like Wendell, so
I love Wendell, and Wendell has come a long way. And it's nice
he's always
because like Joseph Vickery said, and he is probably my biggest super fan. He's read everything. He approached me first time he read about Wendell and read my first 6 books, I think. He was just a kid. And he came and met me in real life and said, I just want you to know, Mr. Buckley, that this is my favorite, Wendell's my favorite character, and this is my favorite, fiction series. And I said, oh, thank you. And I just dismissed it. And one of
mm,
my daughters, who turns out was best friends with his sister, his big sister, and she's like, Dad, do you know how that is? And I was like, no. And she says, that's Joseph Vickery. Okay. And she's like, no, just with us kids. He says, he's super smart and he reads like 2 books a week. He reads fantasy all the time. And he just said that Wanted Hero is his favorite series. Dad, that's a big deal. And Kathy, my wife's looking at me going, and I'm like, oh, I so missed that moment, didn't I? So next time I bumped into him, I was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I was like, ah. And now he's a man, he's a grown up, and he's, was one of the first after you is another supporter of Life of Fiction. And so he's bought all the books, read all the books before they were unpublished, and I started over. And when he got choices, he literally reached out and said, Jamie, I was such a fan before. He goes, this Wendell? Because I did admit to everyone, I said, here's the thing. I started with comic books. I ended up with novels. Somewhere along the way, there's a huge hole, and I want to write the actual story that has everything in it. It's going to be a little bit darker than what I had initially, because I started as comic books to be lighthearted, and then the novels were a little bit, but it's supposed to be a lot meatier than what it was. And he says, Wendell has progressed in 1 book what it took him 8 books before. I love this. I was like, oh, okay, that's good. We're
you
going
know
down
what
the right
else I
road.
love?
What's that?
I really love Demoni Von Kill.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a beautiful book.
But
I
by
love
the
that
way,
book.
I don't usually say this. I need to let everyone know. I wrote that with my wife. I wrote
Wow.
I wrote the
That's
book. I wrote the book, But when she went through and she read it, she was like, sweetheart, those love letters to his wife, she's like, this is what really got me. She says, if you were writing to me, it would be so much better than this. Why
Yeah.
isn't he writing to her like you write to me? I was like, oh,
Mm.
oh, huh. So I tried it again and she's like, then she smiled. She's like, almost. Can I please help? And I'm like, yes, please. So she fine-tuned those letters. And I was like, oh, hun, that's good. She says, so let's do a test. What? She says, let's get some people over. Why don't you do a reading? What? I'd never done a reading. She says, let's do a reading. Let's do it at our house. We had a great big farmhouse at the time. She says, I'll make food. We'll get it all set up. We'll bring in extra couches and chairs and everything. I was like, how many people you want to have over? We have like 53 people in our house sitting in our front room. I was like, what are you doing? She goes, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I got enough food. I'm like, I'm not worried about the food. I've never read in front of people before. And they're in my house. I can't say, I don't like you. Get out. And I can't walk out. I live here, you know?
I would be like under my bed
Oh
hiding.
my
Yeah.
gosh, I was so stressed. And not only that, she told my oldest son the very last chair when people came in, she said to put the chair right against the front door. No one could leave until we were done. I was like, you. And the funny thing is watching my son look at
Oh
me from
boy.
across the room going, I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I said, how long is this reading supposed to be? And she says, read, because it's like, what, 76 pages. She says, read the whole book. What? Everyone sat there. Nobody got up to go to the bathroom. No one made a peep. I had kids there. And I read it, and I didn't realize until when I was done that I was changing my voice like I do with my kids. I had no idea I was doing that. And my kids were like, that was awesome, Dad. That was like at bedtime. What? And my best friend was there. He's like, I didn't know you did voices. Oh, crap. I did voices. This is so embarrassing. So I finished the book. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes took me to read the whole thing. Okay. We're done. And I closed it and I looked at everyone and I started sweating because the whole room was just quiet.
They needed that other letter, the
No,
last letter, the
no.
secret letter.
Oh gosh. No, they have well, no, you have a letter with the wax stamp, that last letter. So I read the whole thing, but we sat there. It was like almost 2 minutes. That was an eternity of silence. And then I looked at everyone and I actually said, oh no, did it suck? And everyone started laughing. They're like, are you kidding me? No. I was like, why isn't anyone saying anything? I'm scared now.
Because it's heartbreaking.
It's like,
It's
what?
tragic.
It
Not
was.
to,
There
not
were
to give away the ending, but oh my gosh, you are. You at the end of it, you're like, no, no, no.
I got a private message this morning from a new member of the community, newest supporter, John, and he said thank you. He says, I just finished Demoni Van Kill last night. He says, knowing that this is the prelude to choices, he says, oh, I am all in. I was like, oh, good. I'm so glad. That's world building. By the way, that was written after the first book. Because I realized, oh, I need more setup. But the thing is that's a book that is 700 years before Wendell ever shows up. But that's how
And
important
it's
it is.
standalone. You can read it by itself.
Yep. Yeah. I suggest reading Bloodsticks, by the way. That's fun. So.
I like Bloodsticks too. Bloodsticks is a different. So that's the thing. You get into different genres within your same series and in your same world, and it's just delightful.
Well, it's Hoban.
Yeah.
I didn't write it, so whatever.
Yeah, that's true. It's Hoban. Hoban's got his own style.
Hoban's got his
We got to
own
keep an eye
style.
on Hoban. Hoban's trouble. That's
Uh,
you realize that pretty quick into Bloodsticks that Hoban is just mischief.
yeah, but he's my buddy. He keeps me on point. So, okay. Well, gosh, that was a fast 2 hours, Lisa. It's
Yeah.
it's 11:54. So you've got another appointment, and I've got a whole bunch of podcasts. speaking of Hoban and I wrote the last 10, all 10 of
Hi, Vicky.
of the last 10 podcasts for the season. All of them done. So that'll be fun. Yeah. We need to catch up on the role playing instructions. So hey, thank you for
Yeah, I
joining
know
us.
everything.
Thank you for joining us here at Life of Fiction on the
Thank
Fiction
you, Joe.
Hub.
I'm glad you could come.
Yeah. It was good for all of you to be here. So well, thanks, Joe. You're awesome too. And spread the word. We're going to do this more regularly.
And
Yeah.
everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks, for coming.
So, and I will take this and put this up as a video later today. So I'll send you a link,
Great.
Lisa, when we're
Send me a
done.
link because I know there's some people who wanted to come who couldn't come. So,
Awesome. All right. Thank you all. And
yeah.
hey, remember you need to. Did you put your Substack? You need to put your Substack link in there.
What is my Substack link? Let me go look.
And I want to encourage everyone. Hey, sign up to lifeoffiction.com. So whether you're watching this video or whether you click on the little subscribe to Life of Fiction below, which I can show you right there. Yeah. So come and join the fun. Come and join the party. And one of the all right, DW. I'll say this. One of the coolest communities. He wants to go to war. He's not going to beat my 1.5 billion gnomes, even with his steampunk. Anyway, did you find the link? Okay. Well, here's what we'll do. Don't worry about it, Lisa. I will end up putting your link, a link
Yeah, it's there.
to your Substack, and
See,
also
it's there.
okay, it's good. And I will put this link on the post with this video so you can sign up to Lisa. I do want you to check out the No Stress Writing Academy because it's wow, that's gonna be the place to be. And yeah, I'm excited about that. And please look up Advanced World Building, advancedworldbuilding.com. You can look up the manual. You can look up the various journals. They're very helpful. Yeah, they sell really well. And now I found out that they're selling them at game shops. That's cool. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you. And I'll be
Thank
talking
you.
to you again later today. We'll plan something else. So, okay. See y'all later. Bye.